Whoops, there we are. There we go. Okay. It's like 500 degrees here, so I'm a little in game. All right. Oh, and look at that. Oh, and now my connection's unstable. Okay. Well, I hope you're doing well, yeehaw. Oh, no, nobody's here. Okay, just wait a moment. Let's do this for a moment. There we go. Oh, okay. Oh, I can only, oh my gosh, Virginia. I can only imagine. And I can only imagine being I've never been there. And I plan to visit. Don't know when, but it's a part of my plans. Okay. I thought it'd be interesting to actually read. This is a very interesting section of this early church in China, because this is sort of a map of their fundamental theology, and they had to put it in terms of the religions that existed at the time, Buddhism and Taoism, and then also some of the not metaphysics, but some of the social aspects of China as well at that time. So let us begin. The fourth sutra, the Sutra of Jesus Christ. Chapter 1. At this time, the Messiah taught the laws of God, of Yahweh. He said there are many different views as to the real meaning of the sutras, and on where God is, and what God is, and how God was revealed. The Messiah was orbited by the Buddhas and Arhats, disciples of the Buddha who have attained semi-divine status. Looking down, he saw the suffering of all that is born, and so he began to teach. Nobody has seen God. Nobody has the ability to see God. Truly, God is like the wind. Who can see the wind? God is not still, but moves on the earth at all times. He is in everything and everywhere. Humanity lives only because it is filled with God's life-giving breath. Peace comes only when you can rest secure in your own place, when your heart and mind rest in God. Day in, day out, there you exist in contentment, open to where you may be led. God leads the believer to the place of contentment and great bliss. All great teachers, such as the Buddhas, are moved by this wind, and there is nowhere in the world where this wind does not reach and move. God's palace is in this place of peace and happiness, yet he knows the suffering and actions of the whole world. Everyone in the world knows how the wind blows. We can hear it, but not see its shadow. Nobody knows what it really looks like, whether it is pleasing to look upon or not, nor whether it is yellow, white, or even blue. Nobody knows where the wind dwells. God's sacred spirit force allows him to be in one place, but where it is, nobody knows or how to get there. God is beyond the cycle of death and birth, beyond being called male or female. God made both heaven and earth. God's sacred spirit force has never been fully manifested. This power can grant longevity, lead to immortality. When people are afraid, they call upon Buddha's name. Many folk are sadly ignorant. God is a sacred spirit force. God is always beside the believer. There are the sutras. People say they know who God is, but they do not. It is in Buddha's nature to bestow grace, and with this grace comes also a deep, clear understanding that lifts above folly. This way, anybody can attain heaven, but if he is not, even if he is not a scholar, the sacred spirit power of God works in everybody, bringing all to fullness. All existence is an act of grace. Every physical form is created. God has brought everything into being. Everything is born, dies and decays, returning into the earth and continues. All that has life, know in your hearts that this is so, and by grace understand how to do that which is good. Everything that is born must die. Everything that lives exists only because the winds give it life. When it is time for life to end, the winds depart from the body. A person's heart and mind are not their own, but are created by the winds. The wind's departure is a time of great distress, but nobody can see the winds at that time. Nobody can see them because they have no form, no color, not red or green or any other. The winds of life are invisible. The path is unknown. Similarly, people want to know where God is. The path is unknown, and so it is impossible to see God. Only the virtuous can enter into the presence of God, can see God. It is not possible for everyone to see God, but those who are blessed and fortunate can feel God close by. But those who do evil will remain sunk in evil. People must first understand that God cannot be seen and never has been seen. So the question arises, how can anyone practice the correct way to be blessed? If they avoid the way of earth, of hell, they can attain the way of heaven. However, even if they do attain the way of heaven, it is still easy for them to sink into the way of evil again. If what they do does not show wisdom, then they are not following the way of heaven. All that lives, regard this grace well. There is a very great distance between heaven and earth. Some lives are shaped by evil. Those who put their souls into serving the nation receive much wealth as a reward, but those who live wicked lives, what is ordered by the power of heaven, will never achieve success or a good post. Instead, they will be exiled by an ignominy. This is not the power of heaven. Is this not the power of heaven? All such evil stems from the first beings and the disobedience in the fruitful garden. All that lives is affected by the karma of previous lives. God suffered terrible woes so that all should be freed from karma, for nobody is beyond the reach of this Buddha principle. Those who do good will be blessed and fortunate, but those who do evil will suffer. Foolish people make wooden statues of camels, cows, horses, and so on. They make them seem very lifelike and worship them, but this does not really bring them to life. If you can understand all this, then understand the process of karma's cause and effect. This is a gift unique to human beings. In today's world, there are so many who create images of people, of scholars and gurus. They think this makes them like God, but they cannot give life to their creations. They are really confused. They make gold, silver, bronze statues of spirits, then venerate them. They even make wooden statues of the spirits, people, and animals. But no matter how much the human statue looks like a human, or the horse statue like a horse, or the cow statue like a cow, or the donkey statue like a donkey, they cannot walk, they cannot speak, they cannot eat or drink. They have no real flesh or skin or organs or bones. Even though these statues cannot talk, everybody today wants to talk to them. If you eat something, you should know by its taste and smell whether it's good or bad. Only somebody who truly worships God can teach the sutras and expound the text. Someone who fears punishment does what is right and tells others to do likewise. God loves such a one, and they are known as one who follows God's law. However, somebody who knows in their heart the right way to follow, but does not do good and encourages others not to do good, is unacceptable to God. Such people are trapped by luxuries and illusions, too preoccupied with appearances, too attracted to life's pleasures, and they are following the wrong path. Such people will end up in the hands of King Yama, God of judgment and rebirth. But even those who accept the teachings of God, who often say, "I obey God," who teach others to obey God, should fear God. Be watchful every day of slipping. Remember, all life depends on God. Everybody should seek the right relationship by resolving their bad actions. Life and death are controlled by the sacred spirit, and everyone should fear God. This fear is like the fear of an emperor. The emperor is who he is because of his previous lives, which have led to his being placed in this fortunate position. He is chosen by God, so cannot call himself God, because he has been appointed by God to do what is expected. This is why the people obey the emperor, and this is right and proper. Everyone should obey the commands. If anybody disobeys, then they are punished. Wise people understand this and teach to act likewise. Those are the people who live by the precepts. If you do not fear God, even if you live by the law of Buddha, you will not be saved. Indeed, you will be counted among the traitors. The third aspect is to fear your parents. You should honor your parents just as you honor God and the emperor. If you honor the emperor and not your parents, then God will not bless you with good fortune. Of these three aspects, the first and foremost important is to honor God. The second is to honor the emperor. The third is to honor your parents. The whole of heaven and earth follows this way. Everything follows this way of respecting parents throughout the world. Everything owes its existence to parents. The sacred spirits have ordained that the emperor is born as the emperor. We should fear God, the sacred one, and the emperor. Also fear your parents and do good. If you understand the law and precepts, do not disobey, but instead teach all people true religion. Buddha creates Buddha's own bitterness and suffering. Heaven and earth have been made to show clearly the causes of creation. The emperor should be the embodiment of enlightenment. He does what is naturally right to do. The first covenant of God is that anything that exists and does evil will be punished, especially if they do not respect the elderly. The second covenant is to honor and care for elderly parents. Those who do this will be true followers of heaven's way. The third covenant is to acknowledge we have been brought into existence through our parents. Nothing exists without parents. The fourth covenant is that anybody who understands the precepts should know to be kind and considerate to everything, and no evil to anything that lives. The fifth covenant is that any living being should not only take the life of another being, but should also teach others to do likewise. The fifth covenant is that any living being should not only not take the life of another being, but should also teach others to do likewise. The sixth covenant is that nobody should commit adultery or persuade anyone else to do so. The seventh covenant is not to steal. The eighth covenant is that nobody should covet a living man's wife or his land or his palace or his servants. The ninth covenant is not to let your envy of somebody's good wife or son or house or gold lead you to bear false witness against them. The 10th covenant is to offer to God only that which is yours to give. But there is much more than this. Do not bully those weaker than you. Do not despise those more powerful than you. If someone is hungry, even if he is your enemy, care for him. Forgive and forget. If someone is hardworking, help and support him. Clothe the naked. Do not abuse or try to deceive your workers, especially if you have no real work for them. To do so, and thus fail to pay them, brings suffering to their families. If you see someone abusing their workers like this, know that the sacred spirit will severely punish them. If a poor person begs for money, give generously. If you have no money, have the courtesy to explain why you can give only a little help. If someone is seriously ill or handicapped, do not mock, because this is the result of karma and not to be ridiculed. Do not laugh at poor people in rags and tattered. Do not obtain anything by deception or force. If someone is arrested, tell only the truth. Never try to use false means to achieve anything. If someone who is alone or a widow or orphan brings a complaint against anyone, their quest for justice should not be hindered. Do not boast or brag. Do not cause dissent and strife by picking quarrels, arguments, or fights, and do not side with one party against another. Someone who has power and authority should not abuse it to make things go his way. So do not use your influence with authority to win a case. Keep quiet. Those who follow the precept should be charitable and humble. Turn away from evil to good. Doing good will save you from tribulation, so do good to all. Those that do so and follow the covenants are those who know the precepts. If, while studying the sutras, you come to believe, then you have received the precepts. If you study but do not believe, then you have not received the precepts. All rests ultimately with God. Our saintly ancestors, both great and small, will stand before us and judge us in the end. The first thing is to obey God. God protects all that lives. Everything that lives does so as a result of this. It is forbidden to take a life, even for a sacrifice, for these teachings forbid taking any life. All sacrifice and slaying of the lamb is to be offered for the sacred spirit's blessing and forgiveness. If any living being does not follow this, does not do good, or sets out to do evil in secret, God will track them down. God will not look with compassion on such behavior, but God does compassion on those who turn away from rejecting God and doing evil. God responded by coming to promote good deeds and replace the former law. This is interesting. So God caused the cool breeze to come upon a chosen young woman called Mo Yan, who had no husband, and she became pregnant. The whole world saw this and understood what God had wrought. The power of God is such that it can create a bodily spirit and lead to the clear, pure passion. Mo Yan gave birth to a boy and called him Yesu, who is the Messiah, and whose father is the cool breeze. Some people claimed they could not understand how this was possible and said that if the cool breeze had made Mo Yan conceive, then such a child must have been created at the bottom of the world. If the emperor sends a command, all loyal citizens must obey it. God looked down in compassion from heaven and controls everything in heaven and earth. When Yesu, the Messiah, was born, the whole world saw a bright mystery in the heavens. Everybody saw from their homes a star as big as a wagon wheel. This mysterious light shone over the place where God was to be found, for at this time the one was born in the city of Wenli Shikin, Jerusalem, the orchard of Bethlehem. After 5 years had passed, the Messiah began to talk. He did many miraculous good things while teaching the law. When he was 12, he assumed the holy word and began teaching. He came to a place of running water, Shunan, Jordan, so that he might be given a name. Thus he came to one called the brother, who dwelt in the wilderness and who, from his birth, had never eaten meat or drunk wine, but instead lived on vegetables and honey gathered from the wilderness. At that time, many people came to the Messiah bringing gifts and worshipped him. These people were deeply troubled. The Messiah went to them bringing the precepts. When he emerged from the waters, the cool breeze visited him from heaven, and a voice proclaimed, "This is my son, obey him." The Messiah showed everyone that the way of God is the way of heaven. He spoke the words of the sacred spirit, telling people to renounce evil and talking about doing good. This began when he was 12, and he preached until he was 32. He found people who were living evil lives and brought them back to the way of goodness, the true way. He instructed his followers, especially his 12 disciples, and traveled the land teaching and healing. Those departed from this world were restored to life. The blind were able to see. The crippled and sick were restored and able to walk. Those troubled by ghosts had them cast out. Some of the sick were healed simply by asking, others by holding on to his gown. They were all healed. Those who do evil and do not recognize the true way or the words teaching of God's religion, as well as the unclean ones, can never be truly saved, not today or even in this generation. The scholars, fearing the Messiah, attacked and denounced him, but the people believed his holy teachings, so he could not be taken. The evil ones schemed together, pretending to be speakers of truth and purity. They tried to slander him, but could not trap him. So they went to the great Pilate, wanting him to kill the Messiah. The Messiah ignored all this and continued teaching the people about true religion and how to do good. He became famous. When he was 32, the evil men came before the great King Pilate, and were able to state their case, saying that the Messiah must die. The great king said that he would not kill him, as there seemed to be no clear case against him. The seekers of evil in this affair argued that he must die, because otherwise, what would become of us? The great King Pilate ordered water brought and washed his hands. Showing the evil ones, he washed his hands clean of the case. The evil ones continued to press their case until he had no option but to kill the Messiah. The Messiah gave up his body to the wicked ones for the sake of all living beings. Through this, the whole world knows that all life is as precarious as a candle flame. In his compassion, he gave up his life. The evil ones brought the Messiah to a place set apart, and after washing his hair, led him to the place of execution called Chichu, Golgotha. They hung him high upon a wooden scaffold with 2 criminals, one on either side of him. He hung there for 5 hours. This was on the 6th cleansing, vegetarian day. Early that morning, there was bright sunlight, but as the sun went west, darkness came over the world. The earth quaked, the mountains trembled, the tombs opened, and the dead walked. Those who say this believe that he was who he said he was. How can anyone not believe? Those who take these words to heart are true disciples of the Messiah. As a result, here the text breaks off. Absolutely fascinating book. This gets into also when Christianity reached Tibet, and remnants of that mostly just exist only in crosses that are there. It touches on when a very small retinue had somehow made it to southern point in Japan, and touches a bit on the church in India, which I have something to read that has to do with that. Directions to the monks in India from the early writings in the Theological. There's more in here, and now and then I'll put a bit of this in there. But yes, after Islam closed the Silk Road, all of this was forgotten. Well, I hope everybody has a good day, has a great week next week. Try to stay cool and safe. We should all, don't worry, the cool breeze is with us. Take care. Have a good night.